Hello, and welcome to the Day of Steve. I have something a little bit different for you today. Something I have never done before, and I thought I would give it a try and give you more of a, here's how it went kind of thing. So, what are we doing? I am painting a Dungeons and Dragons miniature. So let me go a little bit into the story here. This past weekend I was out with my new lady friend, and we went back to the arcade that I showed a couple weeks ago, and at a certain point we said, well, there's a mall here, let's go check out the mall. And we're walking through and get to a gaming store, and we go in, and there I see a couple of Dungeons and Dragons board game box sets that I used to have several years ago, but for reasons I'll not get into now, I no longer have access to. On Monday, there was a delivery at my door, and she had gotten me the Castle Ravenloft Dungeons and Dragons board game. Now, the thing about this game is that it comes with a bunch of miniatures. None of them are painted. They had a similar game set up in the store where they had gone through and they had painted everything, and I thought it looked really nice. So I said, I'm gonna give this a try. It's something I've been wanting to do for a long time, but it's something I'm really nervous about. So first things first, I kind of set up a workspace here. I put down a sheet of paper to keep the paint off my desk. I'm wearing an old shirt, so it doesn't matter if I get paint on it or not. I have my figure here, and this is part of the reason I got this set is because this is a figure of Minsk from the Baldur's Gate games, and he's got a little hamster sitting on his shoulder, which is his companion Boo. And one of my favorite characters from that particular series. He's hilarious. I have the paintbrush that came with the set here, and I mean, it's got a tip on it. It's not the finest. I have some more brushes coming with a finer tip, but my roommates lent me a set of theirs, which I hope will work for me. It looks like they have one in there that is a little bit more precise, and they have the wider brim brushes too, which should be good for certain parts of it. I have all my paints over here, and they have clever names like Mithril Silver. I also have a little palette here for mixing some paints, and I have a cup of water for cleaning my brushes off, and I have some tissues. I also borrowed a magnifying lens from my roommate, so hopefully that'll help me see a little bit better to get some of the details on it. Hopefully that'll be good enough that you can see. I can zoom in. That's as far as the camera will zoom. So for this, I decided to use a different brush, one with a bit of a wider, one that's a little bit wider for my primer. Now, here's my primer. We always want to use primer on these paints or on the figures. So I'm going to shake this real well. Just going to put a couple of drops in my palette. And they actually recommend using, I'm just going to see if I can get a drop of water on here. a little bit of water too to mix up in there to try and get a bit of a smoother coat. And I want to do thin coats. I don't want it to be too I don't want it to go on there too thick. So I'm going to start with the back here. And oh, this is hard to see because the gray of the primer matches the gray of the figure. Okay, I'm gonna let that sit and then put on a second coat. Okay, so we have our primer on. Not that it looks at all different, at least not to me. So we're gonna move on to just a couple of base paints. Now, I just put a couple drops of my Flump Pink in my palette, and I'm going to use this to paint on the skin areas of our character. I'm going to use the thinner brush for this one. So let's get just a little bit of paint, and again, we want some real thin coats here. We're not going to worry too much about getting the spilling into other areas at this point. Alright, so we got the Flump Pink on for his arms and head. You can see I kind of got a little bit on the sword. I'll have to be careful. At this point, it's not a big deal because I can paint over it, but later we'll want to definitely be very careful about where we're getting the extra paint. The next color we're going to use is called Mithril Silver. I'm just going to use one drop, and that should actually be plenty for this color, because there's not a, well, actually there's a bit more than I thought, but we seem to have plenty left over of the pink. Now granted, there wasn't a lot of pink that went on here. So with the silver, we're going to be painting the sword and his armor. Alright, so I got all the Mithril Silver on. I got his bracers and his armor. So, and his leg plates. We're getting into some of the smaller details here. So next, we're going to paint the base of his cape with Dragonfire Red. Again, I want to use, don't want to put it on too thick. I want to just use a thin coat and go over it a couple of times. You don't want to glob it on there. You want to be able to see all the details of your figure. Well, he's starting to come together. We got the red on. Just got a few extra drops here that I'll need to touch up later. Next, we're going to do his pants. And for this, we're going to use the Abyssal Black. Just going to be very, very careful. Don't want to get it on the cloak, on the armor. Don't want to get it on anything except the pants. Alright, so next we have to do the leather parts. For this I'm going to use the finest brush that I have, because he's got this little belt there, and that's going to be, it's a little belt there, and that's going to be, I think, the most challenging part of this so far. He's got a face tattoo, which is also going to be tough. So we're going to basically do the belt. There's some leather on his sword and his shoes. I don't see really anything else that might need it, and that'll also clean up some of the extra red that I got everywhere. Alright, so we're going to use some brown. That is way more than I'm going to need. So I'm going to get some water here to mix up so it smooths out a little bit. Alright. And again, we just want a tiny, tiny little bit of this at a time. So I'm just going to get a little bit on there, and I'm going to be extremely careful. This is our figure, and he's that's not terrible. I need to do some touch-ups. Just some of that red got through, but I think he looks pretty good. Now he's got a purple, little purple tattoo on his head, but I'm gonna have to, think I might do that off camera. Oh, and I need to do his hamster as well. So a little bit more to do, but I got the base colors pretty much on there. I don't think that's terrible for a first attempt at this. So I changed my setup around a little bit. I'm using my mic stand here to balance my phone on, which is giving me a little bit more light. And having more light makes all the difference in the world. I went back, I touched him up a bit. I got some additional paints. And for the last step, I just basically applied a wash here. It's a very liquid. I got a couple of them here, a brown wash, a flesh wash, and where's the third one? A shadow wash. Alright, so we used the flesh wash on the fleshy bits, we used the shadow wash on the metal bits, and then the brown wash on everything else. Honestly, I am very happy with how he turned out. Very, very nice looking. Well, I hope you enjoyed this video. Something a little bit different, something new that I have never done before. Very happy with how it turned out. If you want to see more videos like this, I'm sorry that, you know, it wasn't really... I'll have to figure something else out for some camera angles, see what I can rig up. But even then, I'm leaning over it, so I don't know how much you would have seen like that either. If you like this, be sure to like, comment, and if you're not subscribed, subscribe. And that's going to be it for now. Good night, and good luck.